Hey, welcome back to the Slay the Spire 2 at home video series where we try to build Slay the Spire 2 at home one tiny piece at a time, except we're not actually going to be doing that today because we've encountered a very big problem actually that I realized since the end of the last episode. So basically though, what's happening is that the way we've implemented our damage calculations is not the way that it works in Slay the Spire, right? So a little bit of a background. So I started working on this project I started by watching the Slay the Spire tutorial on the Godot Game Lab channel, right? So it started with a YouTube tutorial, but in that tutorial series, it's just a YouTube video tutorial that I watched. Like not everything is exactly the same as Slay the Spire, right? So I had to, go refactor a lot of stuff, and apparently I missed a spot, right? Because right now what we're doing, it's probably mostly the same as the YouTube tutorial I watched. Is that they're doing different rules, right? So, but basically what we're doing is we're applying the modifiers to the player to the source of the damage, right? Before dealing damage, like strength and then weak, right? And then we're rounding that, and then we're applying, the modifiers on the target, like vulnerable, and then rounding that. And that is not what happens in real Slay the Spire, right? Because in real Slay the Spire, so I noticed this while playing the mobile version of the original Slay the Spire, right? So basically what happened is that I had a twin strike, I was weak, I was attacking an enemy with vulnerable, and it was doing 5 damage, per hit, right? And then so it's like, wait. So yeah, that sounds right? But yeah, that's not what we're doing, right? Because we've got it wrong. But basically, in real Slay the Spire, right, the weak and vulnerable seem to be applied at the same time, and the multipliers multiply with each other, right? So, but basically, so when you're weak, you do 25% less damage, so you have the 0.75, and then when the enemy is vulnerable, it's like takes 50% more damage, right? And then so when you're multiplying those two numbers together, right? So 0.75 times 1.5, right? You get 1.125. And then so you multiply 5 by 1.125, you get 5.625, right? And then you round that down to 5. That's why when you're weak and the enemy is vulnerable, you do 5 damage per hit with Twin Strike, right? So what we're doing is that we're applying weak first, and then, so that'll round down to 3, and then we apply vulnerable, that'll, round down to 4, right? And that we're not going to get the right answer in the end. So we're going to have to do some refactoring here to fix this big problem that we have, right? Because, yeah, we're just basically, it's not working the way because what we're trying to do is do Slay the Spire, not something else, right? And so I guess if you've been following this series, you also know that we've just got architecture problems in general, right? We're doing too much copy pasting, like, we're doing this logic in every card, every enemy attack, right? So we've got some technical debt that we've been putting off on addressing, but now that we've found this problem, it's time to finally address this issue, fix the thing and just kind of set things up to, to be able to make it faster to add content, fix bugs in the future. Because we don't want to, every time we change the damage calculations to change every single card, right? That's not what we want to be doing. We'll be old before we finish this, if we ever finish this at all, right? So yeah, so we need to decouple the math from the card effects. That's one thing, right? And so we should also kind of keep in mind the features we want to implement in the future, like enchantments, right? So we don't want to be changing every card, the code every time we change an enchantment or add an enchantment. And maybe this math, it turns out to be wrong, right? Or maybe we want to do something else. We don't want to every time we make a change have to change every card, every enemy action, right? So we need to fix that, right? And then we also need to, keep in mind, cards like, relics like Paper Frog, Paper Crane, right? So we just need to make things more extensible, easier to change, just kind of do that. So, and then, but mainly also for now, we also need to get away from this idea that we're applying our modifiers like strength and weak first, or the source modifiers, and then doing vulnerable, because that's not how it works in real Slay Spire, right? In real Slay Spire, basically you apply the flat modifiers on both, yourself and the enemy. So I don't know if there actually are flat modifiers for the target. There is in Slay the Spire Downfall and Slay the Spire 2, I'm not sure, but we're going to be re-architecting things. So if we do run into a case like that in the future, it'd be easy to add, right? But then the multiplicative modifiers on both the source of the damage and the target of the damage need to be applied at the same time, not one after the other, right? So yeah, let's get to it, and then we'll just start refactoring. All right, so we need to add a new global class. So this will be like kind of our, and then we'll extend ref counted, I guess, right? Because that's what we do for our existing global class here that we use for other stuff, right? Not for damage calculations, but yeah. So we'll create a new script, and then this will inherit from ref counted. Hold on. Okay, ref counted. And then this can be attack damage calculator or something, right? Something like that. So we'll do that. Class name attack damage calculator. Okay, so we do that, and then we'll have a bunch of static functions to calculate the damage that we need to be doing, right? So yeah, there's a lot of different things that need. So I kind of looked through all of our code and tried to take notes of everything that's going to need, need to be refactored. So we'll just go through things one at a time, I guess. All right, so we need to do calculate modified damage, right? All right, so something like this. Okay, so we'll have static func. Yeah, whoops. Oh yeah, I should just do that. Right? Calculate modified damage. So we'll call it a card, I guess. Yeah. So for now, I guess we'll just pass in more if there's a question, right? That we can just refactor everything at the end. So card, unmodified value, the source modifiers, the target modifiers. And then let's see. And then this will return an integer, I guess, right? Okay, so, well, I guess we can return 0 for now, right? So this is just a stub for now. Do we need this? Yeah, okay, like that. And then that's going to call into other functions, right? Where we have apply flat modifiers, and then and then apply multiplicative modifiers, right? So let's stub those out first. Apply flat modifiers. And then, so yeah, we can have unmodified values and source yeah, same thing. So we'll just return 0. And then in the, yeah, we also need a function to apply the multiplicative values, right? All right, like that. And then, so this will be like the value with like the flat modifiers applied. So we probably do need a card because some cards might also have enchantments in the future that, apply multiplicative modifiers. So maybe we'll put that there too. So this will be like, value with flat modifiers applied, right? Do we want to give that a separate variable name? I mean, with flat. Is that a little bit clunky of a name? I mean, we could just call it a flat modified value. I don't know. It doesn't really matter that much. We can always change the name later. Okay, so we do that. That'll return an integer, right? Return 0. Okay, so we have some stubs in. All right, so now I guess, how do we want to do this? Like, what order do we want to go? There's a lot of stuff that we're going to need to change. I guess we'll just start from here, I guess, right? So first of all, I mean, this will be kind of a to-do, like, apply enchantment effects from card, right? So the card can just kind of be a source. So I guess it wouldn't be a card, right? Because if we're doing enemy actions, like, so I guess we can just pass in null, right? Yeah, it could just be card for now. If from a card. And then card is null if from enemy action. Because enemy actions don't have enchantments, but yeah, we do that. Okay, so the first thing we do when we calculate the modified damage, right, is we apply the flat modifiers, right? So we Yeah, we're kind of, where are we? Yeah, so we're kind of here, right? And then so I guess we'll just, yeah, paste our nodes, right? All right, so first we'll loop through our source modifiers, right? So damage dealt modifier equals source modifiers dot get whoops, modifier, whoops. Yeah, damage dealt, right? So we do that, and then for modifier in damage dealt modifier dot get children, I guess. Yeah. Do you need the colon? I guess you probably do need the colon, right? And then so this will be for things like strength, I guess, for now, right? And then maybe in the future, you know, do this for target modifiers too, if there are cases where this is needed, like in Slay the Spire, Downfall, Hermit cards or something, right? So, but for now we don't need that. Okay, so modifier. Okay, so we need to do just like we do in modifier, right? Except we kind of we do this thing, right? Except we're not. Yeah. So we add that to our so I guess we can come up with we can have a temporary variable for the return value, right? Value and equals. So first we use unmodified value, right? And then for modifier in the source modifiers, right? And then so we do return value plus equals value. Oh wow. Like that, right? And then at the end we return the return value, right? So that'll be the first part of what we. No, well, this is actually what apply flat modifiers does, actually, right? So we need to move this down there, yeah. So yeah, and then we call that, you know, so var flat modified. Well, let's do the same thing. So for return value equals, yeah, equals unmodified value to start with, and then we do return value equals apply flat modifiers first, right? That'll be the first step. Equals well, card, and then unmodified. Oh, wow. I mean, is it confusing if we pass in just this reference by value? It probably is, right? So maybe we do it like this first. Yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe for clarity we should do temporary variables just to make sure, you know, we're not passing the values of because that's a little ambiguous, right? Okay, so yeah, let's make temporary variables. Okay, so var flat modified value equals modified value. Okay, so yeah, I'll start with, and then so we do this sort of thing, right? Well, yeah, I guess we do that just to be absolutely clear, right? Okay, and then we do source modifiers, target modifiers, yeah, like that. In the end, we're gonna, so we do need to apply the multiplicative values first, but yeah, apply. What is this? Cannot find source modifiers in base int. Are we passing in the things in the wrong order? Oh, needs to be a comma, not a dot. I'm zoomed out so far I can't even see what I'm typing. All right, so yeah. Okay, and then so then for the apply multiplicative values, right? We kind of do the same thing, right? But we also have to take into account for the targets, the targets modifiers, right? And then so I guess we can put some notes here that this is where we also apply the paper frog and then the paper crane cases. Frog and paper crane cases, right? Yeah, so for now, I guess the meaning of what the value put in for weak and vulnerable isn't actually going to mean anything. We'll just do that here. We'll put constants in for the weak and vulnerable modifiers, right? So let's put those constants in also. Yeah. So I guess we just have like I don't know. We'll just put it at the bottom here. Const like base weak modifier flow equals negative 0.25, right? And then const base vulnerable modifier float equals 0.5, right? So we'll have those to refer to. All right, so then and back to our attack damage calculator, right? So we'll do our, yeah. So we'll kind of do the same thing as the flat modifiers, except for the except for the multiplicative ones, and then do the multiplicative math instead of the addition, right? So yeah, so this will be start out as this source modifiers damage dealt, and then okay, so for modifier, if modifier is the percent based, right? We do damage return value times equals 1 minus 1 plus so I mean value dot percent value, right? Yeah. So we'll do our math a little bit differently than we've done before, right? So we'll do the values based on, yeah. Because this math is different than the way it works in Slay the Spire. You don't add all the percent-based modifiers because it seems like we're multiplying them together, and then that's how we, yeah, so do it. So this is not going to be, I mean, this is deprecated logic. Right? We need to fix our thing to make it more like real Slay the Spire. Okay, so 1 plus the modifier dot, what was it called? Dot percent value, okay. Yeah. And then we'll do the same thing for the so we need source and target. Yeah, so well let's yeah. And then we need source damage taken modifier. So this is an enemy modifier, this target modifier, right? Because enemies can attack players, right? And then we just yeah. So that needs to be. So we need to fix that in notes before we realize that. Where do we put that? Oh yeah, source and target, not player and enemy, because yeah, enemies can also attack. So we have similar logic for cards and enemy actions, right? Yeah. So we need to do this, and then so this will be target modifiers. Get yeah, so we do that. So this won't be strength, like a weak and vulnerable, right? This needs to be a period. All right. And then yeah, so we do that return value. Yeah, so but we also do need to take into account that our weak and vulnerable is going to be different. That we're going to have different logic, right? So for now, we need to pull those from the constants and not from the thing that's actually in the modifier. Like when All right, but so this will be something like that, right? And then return value. And then so how do we do this? So we do if like modifier dot what did we call it? Was it wasn't type or no, it's modifier value. We're looking at modifier values, right? So we need to so yeah, this isn't a modifier, it's a modifier value. Okay. Yeah. So modifier dot maybe we should rename it also. Yeah. Like that, and then dots. Okay, so the source equals, so this is a string, right? Right now we have, yeah, so we'll just say week. We can do a to lower also, or yeah. So we'll do that. And then, so this is where we need to handle the paper frog, right? Case to do handle paper crane case and other things that affect. But for now, we'll just use the, you know, the thing, the constant that we put in. Constants plot dot base week modifier, right? And then otherwise we'll do, yeah. And then we'll do the same thing for our, then this will be a modifier value now, not modifier. All right. And then so we'll do the ones for the target also, right? And then we'll do the vulnerable things, right? So yeah, we also, what are these warnings? Unused. Oh, hold on. Oh yeah, well we haven't finished this function yet. This one, what about this? Oh yeah, so this one we're doing later because we don't actually have enchantments yet, right? So let's like mark that for now. Yeah, okay. Okay, like that. What other warnings do we have? I mean, this one we don't have for now either, right? So I guess we can also do that. All right, narrowing conversion. Oh, so yeah, we do need a float first, right? And then we convert it to an integer after by rounding. Huh. So, okay, so let's start with the unrounded value, right? So this will be a float. I mean, is that kind of how we do this here? Yeah, flat, yeah, okay. Okay, so we'll start with the rounded value, unrounded value. Okay, so then we do, so we need to note that, you know, to do handle paper frog and other things that affect vulnerable here. But for now, we'll just, you know, do the base thing, right? So if modifier value dot source, right? Yeah. Dot to lower equals. Let me make sure that this is what we're using when we register those, right? I'll just check the actual status effect scripts. So when we're applying weak, when we're applying vulnerable, so we have, yeah, we're using vulnerable and then we're using weak, right? Okay. So yeah, let's do that. Okay, so now what okay, back to here, right? So if we're vulnerable, then we do the same thing for weak, but for, yeah, for vulnerable. And then we do that. Oh. Okay, and then we do like kind of a floor eye, right? And so does that take a float? Let's see. Yeah. Because it's Slay the Spire, things run down, right? Okay, so now we have the apply multiplicative. Hopefully that's, we didn't mess up anything there, right? So, all right, so we do that. We apply our multiplicative. Okay, so we have our flat modified value here, right? And then we pass it as an int to, yeah, okay. So, I mean, I guess we can just, maybe we do it this way. So we just return, oops, deleted a little bit too much there. So we have that, and then we just return apply multiplicative modifiers card, flat modified value, source modifiers, target modifiers, right? Yeah. Yeah, like that. Okay, so that'll be our logic, right? And then so we replace the logic in every card, right? And so hopefully we're this will be the last time we have to say we're doing something for every card, because now we've actually got, because after we finish this whole refactor, we'll have a more robust architecture, right? But now we actually have to change everything that actually uses these to actually use these calculations, right? Because we aren't actually doing that yet. So I guess we'll start with the card, right? And then we'll do the enemy actions, right? So, okay, so the calling card. So right now we need, okay, so, yeah, so basically the card tooltips, okay, so, yeah, I mean, basically when we're doing the tooltips and when we're doing card.play, right? So I guess we'll just start with strike, right? So, okay, so unmodified damage is the same. That instead of doing the damage to execute, yeah. So we need to just, yeah, let's just do it the way, we thought. All right, so basically in strike, right, where we do unmodified damage in equals. Yeah, so, okay, so the unmodified damage will be calculated the same way, right? And we can leave the strike dummy thing there for now. So, and then we do that, and then we do that, right? But then after that, right, we don't do this thing, right? We need to do modified damage equals attack damage calculator dot calculate modified damage, right? So this will be modified damage, right? And then player modifiers, because the player is doing the attacking, and then the enemy is taking the damage, right? And then yeah, so we do that, right? And then when we're getting the color, so that's, so the target value should actually not be unmodified damage, because strike dummy, because the tooltip shouldn't take into account the strike dummy damage, right? Yeah, so we should actually be using just without the strike. So we need a separate variable for, okay. Yeah, so this is actually a bug that I didn't notice before because I didn't really test the strike dummy. Okay. So maybe we should kind of... So we need two separate variables, right? One for the with the strike dummy and then one without the strike dummy. Is that... Or do we leave this the way it is and then just do something separate here? I guess we could just do that. So yeah, because we're not using this unmodified damage, right? We're doing this and then so what we're doing, yeah, upgraded damage. So this would be kind of base upgraded damage, right? And then otherwise we fall through to, yeah. And then this will be base damage here, right? So this will refactor the tooltip well, I don't know if I should call it a tooltip because in Slay the Spire the card text is always visible, right? But yeah, so we have this sort of thing. And this is when the card is sitting in your, when you're hovering over the enemy with your card, right? Not when it's just sitting in your hand, not targeting anything, right? Because that's... And then, yeah, this thing also doesn't take into account the strike dummy also, right? So we need to, yeah. So yeah, yeah, we probably do need to think about how we want to handle the strike dummy case more, right? Instead of, but for now, I guess we'll just do this, spaghetti code for the strike dummy and just worry about the overall, combat damage refactor. Okay, so, how do we want to do this? So we'll just say, I mean, we just have the same logic here, I guess, right? And then, yeah, like that. Okay. And then so when we actually play the card, we also have to, do the same things to actually not do this thing, which we said was wrong, right? And that's why we're doing this attack damage well, in addition to the overall robustness of the architecture, we're also doing it just to be, to fix our damage calculation to be more like the Slay the Spire ones, right? So we do. Oh, and this is also not taking into account the strike dummy, right? So yeah, I mean, we need to think more about the strike dummy case, but that's another time. Okay, so yeah, so we'll just do this sort of thing, right? So the damage amount will be based on what's returned from the attack damage calculator, right? But other than that, the logic of this will be pretty much the same, right? Because we're calculating the modified damage using attack damage calculator, not as a result of, the target's damage taken modifier. So basically, yeah, this stuff will be a lot of the same logic, right? So let's just kind of put this here. Then we do that. And then the modified damage is, yeah. And then the damage effect is the yeah, so regardless of whether it's upgraded or not, the damage effects damage will be not based on modifiers, but it'll be modified damage, right? Because we've already got the modifiers in here. Okay, so, oh, we also need to, because we're doing an array, right, implementation for play, so we need to target each of the things individually in case we ever have AoE then. So that's another difference, I guess, that we have to refactor. Okay. Yeah, so I guess, yeah, these arrays will always be enemies that you're targeting with strike, right? So we'll just say target, no. So first of all, we need to loop through the yeah. Targets, right? And then we have our target. We'll cast a node to an enemy, right? And then, so we do the damage effect on each of those enemies, right? Well, this can be outside the loop, right? It's just an integer. And then we do that. What is this? Oh, the as needs to be lowercase. Okay, so yeah, this will take a different signature, right? Oh, I guess, okay, so yeah, the enemy modifiers could be different for each one. So we do need to have this inside the loop. Okay. And then instead of doing play, okay, so player modifier, so that's this, right? So maybe we should rename this to be like player modifiers, right? Yeah, just to match that. And then this, yeah. And then so this will be node dot modifiers, right? Not node, it'll be enemy, target as enemy. Target as enemy dot modifier handler, right? Yeah. Yeah, like that. Okay, so that's why we casted it to the enemy class to begin with, right? And then we do the damage effect. The damage effect is just the modified damage for this enemy. I mean, this is for strike, but you know, if we ever have like a, yeah, because our card effects are independent of whether, you know, the targeting. So we just have this basic API in place, right? So let's just, you know, be compliant with that. Although for strike, it'll always be one, you know, for strike, it will always be an array of size 1, right? But, you know. Okay, so we have modified damage, and then, okay, so now when we're executing the damage effect, right? So the take damage functions need to not apply their modifiers, because that's the way we had it set up before, right? So we'll have to do that for enemy and player. So in the take damage functions, we need to, yeah, not do that, right? So in take damage, we do not apply modifier. There might be other reasons we need to know which modifier type it is, like for poison damage, for relic damage, or, you know, health loss damage or whatever, but we're not going to apply the vulnerable modifier, right? So we're not doing this, right? So this is gone. So I'll just make a note of that. Deprecated. This is part of, so this is from the reference project, and then in Slay the Spire, enemy modifiers are accounted for at the same time as player modifiers, and they stack multiplicatively. Yeah. Okay, so we do that. So we no longer have that. And then so the damage that's passed in is already the modified damage, right? So we can even rename this variable to be, you know, to better represent that, right? And then, so that'll be here, and then yeah, so then the rest of the function can be the same. And we have a separate function for the things that, you know, that might be another thing we need to rethink, right? But, you know, we have a separate take damage function for things like feed and then hand of greed, but, you know, yeah, we might have to rethink that in the future too. But for now, we're not worried about that. We'll just do a simple refactor, right? And then we do that here. Yeah, let's put this here. And then, yeah. Okay, so now we've refactored the enemy take damage functions to account for that they're already receiving the modified damage, right? So now we need to do the same thing for the player function, and it's basically the same thing. The only reason we have separate player and enemy scripts is because the player just, you know, there's no dual inheritance in multiple inheritance in Godot, right? Or GD script rather. So, you know, that yeah, and then the enemy is an area 2D and the player isn't, because, you know, we're never worried about the hitbox. You don't drag cards over the player. That's just the reason. So that's a little bit janky, but that's just the way it is, right? Okay, so we get rid of that, and this is also the same reason for it's deprecated, right? And then we just pass in the modified damage to begin with. Yeah. Okay, so now for the Now we just need to do the same thing as that, right? For every card, right? And every enemy action. But I'll do one enemy action, and then, I'll probably stop recording after that, because, you probably don't need to see me do the grinding, out the refactor for every single, action and then card. And I'll just kind of delay the next video until I've got all that stuff done, right? But for now, okay, so now we refactor one of the enemy actions, and that'll be the basic attack action, when it's just doing its normal attack on you, right? So basically the intent, text needs to be updated, right? Just kind of like the updated tooltip text needs to be updated for the cards. And then the perform action is kind of similar to card.play, that we just need to, do the updates to account for our changes. So we're not doing this anymore, right? Okay, so when an enemy attacks, it's doing the damage, right? This is the unmodified damage, basically. Instead of doing this thing in stages, right, we're using the attack damage calculator. So let's see. So this will be attack damage calculator dot calculate modified damage. And this will be null for an enemy action, right? And then we'll have unmodified value will just be damage. And then the source modifiers will be enemy dot modifier handler. And then, this one will be target, player, dot modifier handler, So that'll be that. And then we don't have to do this part. And then the intent text can be this, right? Okay, so that should take care of that. And then we have to do so this is just for the intent text when it's showing the number above the enemy's head, right, that it's going to hit you with. So we also need to refactor the actual damage that's done to you when it actually does the attack. So it's just the same thing though, right? So instead of doing this, passing in the, doing it in two separate steps, we do it all at once, because that's just the way it's done in Slay the Spire, right? So, okay, so we have to call the attack damage calculator from here, right? So instead of doing this. So let's put that call in there. So this will be attack damage calculator dot apply, not calculate modified damage, null, just damage, source modifier, enemy dot modifier handler, right? And then this will be target dot, target is just a node, right? Is target? So maybe we need to do the cast as player. It's a node 2D. Wait, is a node 2D? Did we have player extending node? Okay, yeah. Oh yeah, we did, right? So the difference between, enemy was area 2D, and then player, there's node 2D. It didn't have the, okay, yeah, that's fine. Okay, so we'll do this cast, I guess. Yeah, I guess we'll just do that. Just to, be more clear. And just do some static type checking, right? And then so we'll do player dot modifier handler. Yeah, and then so this is gone, right? Yeah, and then this will be modified damage, and then when we do the damage, it'll do the updated damage taken functions that we have. Okay, so now in theory, if we've done everything right, it should just work, right? And then at least just for the basic attack action and then the strike card, right? And so we'll still have to refactor all the other cards, and then, like that we have here, but we don't have to do that in this video. I can just do that, on my own, and then, and then the next video can hopefully just be new content, new features, right? Yeah. But so, we do have a lot of other cards that we're going to have, and enemy actions that we're going to have to do this for, right? Just because our architecture sucked before. And that's why we're fixing it now, right? So we don't have to do this in the future. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of cards that are going to have to change, right? But for now, at least we can make sure that just the basic enemy attack and then the strike cards work, and hopefully it does. And if not, we need to debug that, before I start recording. So let's make sure what we did just worked, right? What we just did works, rather. Okay, so, we've got a crash already, right? So that's not a good start. Well, that's what happens when you're running code live, right? Okay, so what's going on here? Non-existent function, get modifier, and base nil. see. Target modifiers. What are we doing? Oh, so if we've got null, then we need to account for that, and then because when you just enter combat, are we just okay? So when we're okay, when we first draw our cards, we're updating the card text, right? And then okay, so this isn't just when you're hovering over the enemy with the cards. Like we've got yeah, so we do need to take into account when it's just sitting in your hand, right? Oh, yeah, because this is more like, oh, okay. So that's why this didn't take into account the strike dummy, because this is when you're upgrading. Yeah, I need to take better notes of what exactly I'm doing, right? Yeah, so we don't have this. So this is like not in combat, right? So yeah, let's get rid of this. And then this is in combat, whether or not an enemy is currently targeted. Okay. So we do need to account for the null case, right? Of yeah, this. So when we're passing in null, we need to account for that. So if, yeah. Okay, yeah, that should be simple enough. So we'll declare it first, right? And then yeah, so let's do this. Okay, and then if we're null, we need to check down here too, right? So we start out as null. And then so if we do a null check here. Okay, so yeah, that should be easy enough. Okay. All right, so yeah. So I probably do need to take better notes of this. So maybe we didn't need to refactor this. That could have been just be left the way it was, right? So we don't need to do this addition thing, right? Yeah, that's why that was like that. Okay, well, let's revert that real quick. Wait, no. Because Strike Dummy in real Slay the Spire, does it show the 9 when you're in the just outside of combat also? I think it does, actually. So maybe we do need that. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, maybe we'll leave it like that. That might be something to check. Maybe check to see if Strike Dummy changes the card text for strike outside of combat, right? So I'll put it to do. That might be something to check next time I get a strike dummy when playing the game or something, right? Okay, but yeah, for now we fixed the null issue here. So now hopefully it'll work unless we run into a different bug, right? Okay, so now we didn't crash immediately upon entering combat. That's good, right? This is still showing a 12 because we haven't implemented Ascension 9 or anything yet. So this 12 is correct. That's Ascension 0, right? But I mean, it would be better to check if we had weak and vulnerable at the same time, since that's the case we're trying to fix, right? But for now, it's good enough to just fix, or to just make sure that our refactor didn't break everything, right? So this is still using the old logic, I guess, right? Because we haven't actually refactored the bash, right? So I'll have to do that also, right? Because right now bash is having its own separate script, right? We probably should make this like a separate damage and vulnerable script, but that I don't have to do that on the video, right? I mean, it should probably be using the same script as Thunderclap, to be honest. Yeah, because right now they've got this separate scripts. That's kind of stupid. So I'll have to refactor that. But let's just make sure we're not breaking everything, right? So yeah. So uh-oh, that's just not good, right? So we've got the wrong value. We're showing 4. A strike does 9 damage, right? So what did we do wrong? So let's see what we messed up somewhere, right? So we need to put a breakpoint here, right? What are we doing wrong? So we're doing, okay, the unmodified value is 6, right? That's correct. Flat modified value should still be 6 because we have no strength buff or anything, right? Yeah, that's correct, right? So then when we're applying our multiplicative modifier, something went wrong, right? So, okay, in flat modify 6, right? Source damage, okay, so we did that. Oh, wait, no. This is wrong, right? Well, this should be target, not... Okay, the name is wrong, but that might not be a problem, right? Yeah, I need to change the name. That's not what caused it to break, though. Okay, so damage taken. Yeah, okay, so that's null. Why is it null? Okay, that's where we messed up, right? We didn't... so source... Oh no, okay, that it's just not working right when hovered. It's not actually null. So let's see what the locals are. Source damage. So that's this. Wait, what? Damage type is damage dealt? What? Did we mess up? Oh no, I clicked the wrong thing. Okay, that's this thing. Okay, so here, if modifier type is percent based, right? Oh, I put the weak modifier for vulnerable. That's what the problem, right? Okay, so we need to fix that. Base vulnerable. Okay, there. And then so then we have the, yeah, we need to rename this to be like target, right? Not source. Yeah. Okay, so now hopefully, yeah, we didn't break everything. So in our refactor. Oh, I need to remove our breakpoint so we don't like break. Okay, so yeah, so now we're doing the right damage, right? Hopefully, and then we make sure we're doing the right damage vulnerable. Not, yeah, okay. And then the enemies are still doing the correct damage, right? And then yeah. Okay, so yeah. So you can see how this is better, right? We've got this attack damage calculator. So there's one place, one place where all of our attack damage calculations happen. And from now on, we're not going to have to change every single card and then, every single enemy action when we change something in the combat logic, right? Whether it's adding enchants or just changing the logic to be something different, right? So now, I guess between now and the next episode, which will probably take longer than usual, I'm going to go through and refactor all the cards, right? Refactor all the enemy actions. But we've got our basic rearchitect done, right? We've got our new attack damage calculator. We've demonstrated how to refactor one, damage card and then one enemy action to do that. But then I'll have to change all the other scripts to use this centralized logic and this more robust architecture that we've just implemented in this video. Right? So yeah, until next time. Yeah.